good day to everyone, and welcome to our open house exhibit entitled The World War One, The Great War. So what is World War One? World War One, or the First World War, was a global war originated in Europe that lasted from July 28, 1914 to November 11, 1918. It was a contemporaneously known as the Great War, or the War to End All Wars. It led to the mobilization of more than 70 million military personnel, including 60 million Europeans, making it one of the largest wars in history. So it is also one of the deadliest conflicts in history, with an estimated 9 million combatant deaths and 13 million civilians deaths as a direct result of the war. What was the main cause of World War One? So the main cause of the World War One is when it began after the assassination of Australian Archduke Franz Ferdinand by the South Slav nationalist Gavrilo Princip on June 28, 1914. This picture is a fierce militarist. Wilhelm II encouraged aggressive Austro-Hungarian diplomatic policies following the assassination of the Franz Ferdinand. The Kaiser was nominally in charge of the German army, but the real power lay with his generals. As a World War I drew to a close, he was forced to abdicate in 1918. This picture is a graduate of West Point and a veteran of the Battle of San Juan Hill. Black Jack Pershing was named commander of the American Expeditionary Force when the United States entered World War I in April 1917. This picture is George V, who assumed the British throne in May 1910, following the death of his father, King Edward VII. He made repeated visits to the front throughout World War I, earning him the deep respect of his subjects. This is a picture when Austria-Hungary declared war on Siberia. Russia's alliance with its Balkan neighbor forced it to enter the war against the Central Powers. The Tsar assumed control of the Russian army with disastrous results. So in 1917, he was forced to abdicate, and he and his family were executed in 1918. This picture is Foch, who led French forces at the First Battle of the Marne, but was removed from the command after the Battle of the Somme in 1916. So in 1918, he was named an Allied Supreme Commander, coordinating the war's final offensives. Foch was present at the armistice ending the war in November 1918. These two pictures is the Treaty of Versailles, where at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, the Allied leaders stated their desire to build a post-war world that would safeguard itself against the future conflicts of such devastating scale. So some hopeful participants had even begun calling World War I the war to end all wars. But the Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, would not achieve that lofty goal. Suddenly, with war, guilt, heavy reparations, and denied entrance into the League of Nations. In World War I, or the Great War, where in this picture shows that guns mounted aboard ships like the Wyoming allowed troops to take out enemies while still remaining at a distance. In this picture, it shows the conflict called the Great War by those involved who was the first large-scale example of a modern warfare technologies still used in a battle today were introduced in large-scale forms, then some, like chemical attacks, were outlawed and later viewed as war crimes. The newly invention aeroplane took its place as an observation platform, a bomber, and anti-personnel weapon. This picture shows the introduction of tanks played a large role in the Great War, whereas they helped to end the stalemate of trench warfare on the Western Front. Her officers inspect a German A-7B tank was captured in Villers-Bretonneux, France. So this picture shows in World War I where French soldiers worked together to camouflage a 370 mm railway gun before battle. World War I shows a pillbox demolishers being unloaded in the Western Front. These enormous shells weighed 140 pounds. Their explosions made craters over 50 feet deep and 15 yards across. This picture in World War I is captured from 1914, a portrait of a German warship making its way through the sea. This illustration portrays the many different types of planes that were used by the British Royal Air Force during World War I, the first military conflict in which aircraft played a critical role. This picture is an illustration by Willis Tower depicts Men Abroad, a World War I submarine. The introduction of unrestricted submarine warfare was a major threat during the Great War. This picture shows in World War I where German soldiers celebrate Christmas in a field in December of 1914. This picture is a green and yellow RAF SE-5A biplane on display at the Abbotsford International Air Show in British Columbia, Canada. In this picture, it shows the British tanks pass dead Germans who were alive before the cavalry advance a few minutes before the picture was taken in World War I, where the debut of tank warfare with varying level of success, mostly poor, and many of the earlier models broke down frequently or got bogged down in mud, fell into trenches, or slow-moving were directly targeted by the artillery. This picture is a naval airship hovers over the Dardanelles in an attempt to gain control of the Constantinople. The Allies battled Turkish forces on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The naval assault eventually stalled, with Britain forced to evacuate their forces. These pictures showed in World War I were two German U-boats sunk during the Great War washed up on shore at the Cornish coast in Falmouth, England. This picture shows the French battleship Beaufort in the Dardanelles. It was assigned to escort troop convoys through the Mediterranean at the start of the war. In early 1915, part of a larger group of combined British and French ships to clear Turkish defenses of the Dardanelles. Beaufort was hit by at least 8 Turkish shells, then struck a mine which caused to make much damage of the ship to sink within a few minutes.
What countries fought in World War I? These two pictures shows the war pit the Central Powers, mainly Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Turkey, against the Allies, mainly France, Great Britain, Russia, Italy, Japan, and from 1917, the United States. This picture shows the World War I, where the British soldiers advancing under cover of gas and smoke. World War saw the first use of chemical weapons in battle. This is the picture of the British officer leads the way over the top amid the bursting of German shells. This picture, a German soldier throws a hand grenade against enemy positions and an unknown battlefield during World War I. This picture shows the Salonika Macedonian front, Indian troops at a gas mask drill. Allied force joined with Serbs to battle armies of the Central Powers and force a stable front throughout most of the war. This picture shows the troops in Passchendaele, Belgium, carry a wounded soldier to a medical post for treatment. This picture shows the British artillery bombards German positions on the Western Front. This picture shows the French machine gunners take their position in the ruins during the Battle of Aisne in 1917. This picture shows the French soldiers in Verdun endured the horrors of trench warfare, a strategy that led to rampant disease, shell shock, and mass casualties during World War I. This picture shows the Japanese fleet off the coast of China in 1914. Japan sided with the United Kingdom and its allies, attacking German interests in the Pacific, including island colonies and leased territories on the Chinese mainland. This picture showed the American soldiers, members of Maryland's 117th Trench Mortar Battery, operating a trench mortar. This gun and crew kept up a continuous fire throughout the raid of March 4, 1918 in Baldonville, Moire and Moselle, France.
So what is the effects of the World War I or the Great War I? These two pictures shows the specific effects of World War I. World War I caused the downfall of four monarchies, namely Germany, Turkey, Austria-Hungary, and Russia. The war was made by people more open to all other ideologies such as Bolsheviks that came to power in Russia and fascism that triumphed in Italy and even later in Germany. World War I is largely marked the end of the colonialism as the people became more nationalistic and the one country after started colonial revolts in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. The war changed the economical balance of the world, leaving European countries deep in debt and making the US the leading industrial power and creator in the world. It also affects the inflation shot up in most countries, and the German economy was highly affected by having to pay for reparations. With troops traveling all over the world, influenza was easily spread and epidemics started which killed more than 25 million people across the world. Social life also changed, where women had to run businesses while the men were at war and labor laws started to be enforced due to mass production and mechanization, where people wanted better living standard. After World War I, the need of an international body of nations that promotes security and peace worldwide became evident, and World War I is boosted research in technology because better transport and means of communication and gave countries an advantage over their enemies. So this ends our open house exhibit. I hope guys that you learned a lot out from our simple and meaningful made a timeline about World War I, the Great War I. This is Abigail Mir.
And this is the Young Babes Malaris.
Thank you for watching.